Now we're on to round three, and I like this particular round because I think it kind of shows off some of the power of why I wanted to get in this build in the first place. Not quite as much and extensively as the first round did, but I think it kind of shows something decent. Now I'm taking a little bit of a risky hand here, but I have a little bit of faith in it, and it seems like it could be decent. I'm drawing a card. I know there's more black than other colors in my deck, and I got a turn one Soul Ring, which even though that was a greedy thing that got me on the previous round, it can just create such overwhelming circumstances that it's really hard not to do. Additionally, I got a lot of stuff I like. I got reanimation targets I can chuck, push them to shove, I can accelerate into this thing to just throw them out. And I have, like I get lucky here, I get to have a swamp, so I have an early aggro, which is what I like. Because now I have potentially a 3-2 beater beat in the face, which with the flying means I can actually do something if there's planeswalkers. I'm filling my graveyard, and as a secondary, I can keep the 12 back, the little weaker one, so that if there's shenanigans like show and tell, I can drop him into play, but then if not, I can just race him out with the Kamigawa card into the breach, and hit him in the face for 10 out of nowhere, and that means that my flyer, if nothing else happened and I have just a terrible hand, could hypothetically get there. Fortunately, our opponent casts Dak, which is one of the stronger moves he can do against us. He's stealing our Soul Ring, our early speed, so we're down 2 mana, he's up 2 mana. He has a Planeswalker now, which means that if we take it out, we have to spend damage or a spell on it. It's really brutal. But what I like about this build, by melding the aggressive, so I'm not completely helpless against an early Planeswalker, and melding the combo-y reanimate, throw into play with haste kind of abilities, is this really is very manageable. I mean, there's not many scenarios where you can blow up your 2 lands, quote unquote, and gain 2 lands and have a Planeswalker and you're not done. But I'm not. Now I'm drawing a reanimation spell, so I can check my guy, so a single land puts me into play for having a huge dude. In fact, I could even have Inkwell Leviathan, which is both harder to kill and Dak couldn't steal, I don't believe. But right now I don't even have to worry about it, because I'm attacking right into his Planeswalker, so as long as I can manage the fact he's accelerated 2 mana, and I can get myself in an advantageous position, I'm not doing too bad. Now, unfortunately, he has an Ancestral Vision in the background, slowly ticking down, so, you know, in a different circumstance, this would be really great, because now he has 2 cards, and I could hypothetically get Toxic Deluge to wear it all down, and he could have nothing left, and then I can eventually reanimate something. Unfortunately, he's going to get ahead on cards here. Now he has another Planeswalker. Once again, 2 Planeswalker in a row that are really strong against us. Luckily, he ends up targeting actually the Rats, which is the one I cared the least about, because if I don't draw land next turn, it's just a 1-1. Obviously, Rats can get a hand, but it takes so long in Cube, I think often it's not the highest value target, and there's plenty of Wrath effects, so you don't have to worry too much. So honestly, the best move for him would have been to kill our Vampire. And I could still, in response, chuck one of my guys in the graveyard, still have my Eldrazi back in case of show tell effects or anything like that. But instead now we're in a good position. Now he's taken out 2 of our cards, accelerated 2 by stealing our Soul Ring, but we're taking down 2 of his Planeswalkers in a row with just our guy. We're not even drawing the land we want, and we're still solid. And then also I have Vandal, which is really strong. Not only can we take out the Soul Ring he stole, you know, which has the same value as if he magically had played it himself, but I think having any kind of destroy artifact spell is main deckable in this cube, because not only does everybody have Moxes and all that sort of crazy stuff, everybody's got a high value accelerator artifact, pretty much, between the Signets and Soul Rings and all that, but they also, except for Inkwell Leviathan, pretty much all of their guys are significantly sized artifact slam dunks at the end. I mean, there's some Eldrazi and there's some other guys, but there's a bunch of artifacts in this thing that people will just use as top ends that are really solid, in addition to very many utility in between artifacts. So I think running a destroy artifact spell of any kind, especially attached to a creature that could jump block if nothing, or in this case could help, you know, attack into a Planeswalker, is really solid. Now, actually, I think we're sitting pretty well. Just one more land. We have an Inkwell Leviathan. He has an island, so it's even unblockable. We're not doing too bad. Now, I am getting concerned because he has the Academy, and he can accelerate for 3 mana off of it, plus 2 from Soul Ring, So he can get out something big here. So this is going to be some critical turns. In fact, I kind of like that he has to dig with Anticipate, which means he's not in the most ideal circumstance yet. But he definitely has an ability that if he eventually draws into something big, he is going to get ahead. I like that he's further digging because digging, you should be concerned because it increases the percentage chance that he has this Windmill Slam. But a lot of times, even in a 40-card deck, you can have them dig and not find what they need. So it's not the most concerning thing ever. Now I have a 3/2 flyer, so if he has any kind of Planeswalker, he really needs to kill it, otherwise I'm going to start taking them down, because short of a Karn, that's going to exceed pretty much anything's plus abilities, so it's going to be wearing the Planeswalker down and limiting its options. And we have something to destroy an artifact if we cast a big artifact. We have something to, push him to shove, everything goes wrong, and he counters our Reanimate spell. We can accelerate this 12/12 to his face, and that could be pretty solid. We have a lot of opportunities here to be kind of aggressive and decent. He's even digging with that, which is great, because that's the kind of spell that could, screw over our plans, prevent the animation spell, or kill our 3/2 flyer, or something. So I'm really liking this. But you got to be aware, because, he's getting closer and closer to having the hand he wants. So it'd be really great opportunities if we had something to make him discard, which we have a couple of in this deck. Not so many on the first game, but we have some options here. The also nice thing is he's digging down so much that if, sometimes digging can be really good in a 40-card deck because there's still fewer things to go through, but when they dig down really far, you can get decking circumstances, especially if they get the unlucky, like maybe they have a one-piece combo, say the Storm or something. It can, on occasions, be at the bottom 3 cards of their deck. And then by then, they just have to have spent so many spells to get to it, it's not as powerful anymore. Now, you don't plan for that because there's plenty of in-between circumstances. But it can work out pretty well. Or if they spend too many digging spells to get to their thing, they can sometimes have not enough cards left in hand to really crush you. But this is Cube, so you gotta always be prepared for the craziness. Now, I could have reanimated here, but there's plenty of things you could go off with that makes me a little concerned, and I hypothetically don't want to do Deluge if it's something I gotta do, spend 10 life to kill something huge. So I'm kind of like hedging my bet. It's like, let's slow down his mana, because that's clearly what he's kind of building his deck around. That's why he has these certain cards. And we can get aggressive on him, and that way, either getting the Inkwell, or just hitting him in the face for 12 with our Titan with that spell at some point, can just be enough, because he's not really going to have much defense on the ground. He's kind of spell-oriented. There is circumstances where you can just get them sometimes. So that's what I kind of like, because the sneak attack stuff is weaker than maybe the reanimate abilities, but sometimes you just hit him to the face. Now, we're in kind of an interesting circumstances. He's shaking up the whole board. He's given a 7 card, which is nice, and now have a sneak attack in hand, so this could hypothetically be very good. But he's clearly got a fresh set of 7. He's got his own taps, and he might have what he needs here, because one of his lands taps for a lot of mana. It's 2 right now, and we made a big move by destroying the Sol Ring, because we both limited him by 1 blue from his land, and we limited him by 2 colorless from the artifact itself, and that would have been an even rougher circumstance if he has, that additional 3 mana here, much less if he has any further untap abilities. So, also he has the ability to regain it if he has Planeswalkers, and while we don't have any really artifacts to get worried about him stealing in this particular circumstance, him getting the Planeswalker that untaps permanents and taps another one, that could be really strong with his land, so we got to be kind of prepared for that. Okay, now he's tinkering here, which is should be very interesting for us. Unfortunately, it really kind of takes out our guys here, which is not what we wanted. But it's not the worst circumstance, because we have areas to build. That's also what I like, because a lot of our reanimation spells are cheap. A lot of sneak attack's only 4, and then the next turn you're spending 1 red. There's lots of options here. We're not in the most ideal. He's too big for Flametongue Kavu. Shriek Mod can't hit artifacts. But we got a 3/2 that can fly. We got a guy that can block, because an important difference sometimes people don't notice with Sundering Titan is it's really strong if you do like he did to us and he kills 3 lands, but it doesn't have trample, it doesn't have flying. You can chump block that guy forever until you find an answer. And ironically, the earlier you get him back, the better it works out for you because he will eventually have to hit some of his own lands in response in the back end. I mean, they usually crush you pretty solid when they first cast the Sundering Titan, but when it gets killed later, it can sometimes hit them more. Like if magically we had a 1 mana removal spell right here, he's losing 2 lands to our 1, and we would have some sitting around in hand. Now he's getting some fresh cards, and we're going to see what he has. Now, because he had that fresh 7 from his Time Spiral, and because he's getting fresh ones on this, I'm more concerned about his searching in this circumstance where he's got a repositioned situation than I am with before when he was searching for card after card after card. Because he's reduced his ability to get decked. And now he's killing our flyer, which actually I'm fine with because he was there to ping, but at best it's just going to block, and it's going to take him at least 3 hits to kill us with just the Sundering Titan if he did nothing else, so we're not in the worst circumstance. Now here's what I'm thinking about here. I'm like, I don't currently have any targets I really want to hit. I'll have plenty of other reanimate spells in my deck later. I can slow roll this and get that Vandal back and kill his Sundering Titan, and if his whole deal was to try and set this up or other big things, I've both reduced his land that produces mana by 1, and I've killed the big thing that can crush us, and that's not the worst. Now, a lot of people maybe get upset with the idea of having to reanimate a Vandal. It's not the best thing either, but it can kill the big threat, and it can let us keep beating in his face, because eventually we can sneak attack something big, because he's close to 10. If I can get 2 Vandal hits in, anything that's the really big guys we got pretty much can kill him right away. In addition that I could hypothetically sneak attack out both of my guys, my Flame Tongue and my Shriek Maw, and it would be the end of the world. Obviously not at the exact same time because they would hit each other, but you get the idea. The other thing too is that, like that's also partially why I like this deck, is that by building this particular way, you can reanimate value targets. I mean, reanimating a Flame Tongue combo with this guy who had a bunch of aggro creatures, getting it out with sneak attack, killing an aggro creature, hit for 4, then reanimating it, kill another guy, now you have a 4/2. That's still a really solid sequencing, even if it's not as fantastic as the idea of getting your opponent for just a ton through, right to your face kind of stuff. So now we're going to get the Vandal, and we're going to try and set up something here. I have confidence in my deck that, we can do something decent here. Because a lot of times people spend so much work to get their big slamming guy out that they don't have much of a backup if they don't. I mean, we're cutting him by 1 land. He's obviously going to get us by 2, which is not ideal. But we still got another land in hand. A lot of our reanimation spells are cheap. And when we play this next land, we're only 2 away from eventually getting to another sneak attack. In fact, the only thing that's really not super fantastic in our hand is Tezzeret, because there's a lot fewer high-value targets. Though, I suppose Sol Ring is somewhere in there, which would be nice, but if we get to the point where we got Tezzeret, we don't care about the acceleration as much anymore. I mean, part of what I was saying, why it's such a big deal is they spend so much time to get their big slammers out, and, I undid his whole work with the Sundering Titan for just reanimating a Vandal, which is the most amazing move ever. Now he has to find a different way to kill me, because his stuff by himself is not going to ever kill me. He's not going to really have anything on board to kill me, so he has to build up to something. Similarly, Blue, that's why Blue can kick so many people's butts. Yeah, it's got great stuff like Ancestral Recall and Time Walk, but more importantly, because everybody runs these gigantuous creatures, it's got a bunch of control of creature effects, which means that you put all that work into reanimating a huge dude. Well, if he doesn't have Shroud, They just steal it and they kill you with it. And they also have stuff like bribery, where they can just search through your deck, and just because you have it somewhere in your deck, they can use it against you. Now here's where this is a bad circumstance. He's going Yawgmoth Will. He's accelerating out a bunch of black mana. Well, he's probably got his combo, and I'm like, okay, he's gonna try for it, and if he has enough, he's got me. I mean, I am down to 10 life, but if he doesn't, well, we'll see what happens. Because sometimes they can try and go off with Storm, and with Storm, you really got to make sure you kill your opponent. You know, sometimes they can go off and they're just very short of it because they had to spend too many spells to get to the position to cast in the first place, and you can get an advantageous situation. Now, in this particular circumstance, he's got Yawgmoth Will and enough cheap stuff in his graveyard. I'm not really expecting anything to go in my favor. But we're going to see how it works. In fact, if he has the Storm in this circumstance, I'm really not so concerned. Because this kind of Tinker Storm hybrid over, everybody likes it because there's two different circumstances where they can really get you. Nice flashback that, which I feel fine with. That's wasting mana on that. And he's got the Tendrils. He's got me. Game over. But I'm kind of happy about this because the kind of deck you need to build to make a really good Tendrils deck is not necessarily the same thing that you want for a good Tinker deck. Because Tinker isn't necessarily that great for getting off your Storm count and having the big, expensive artifacts that you have to have in your deck to be tinkering for in the first place, even if it's just one Sundering Titan, is not that great. And then if you only go with one target, let's say Sundering Titan's his only tinker target in there, that's not great either, because he has to, if he draws it, then he has no use for his tinker, so he has a completely blank card in his deck. And both those cards, like I said, don't help the Storm building, so I kind of feel like, even though I lost, and it took him a lot of stuff, and he was down to almost a handful of cards left in his entire deck, it took all that, and he had to just barely get me, and that means that his deck has his inherent weakness. Now I'm taking out stuff like Flame Tongue and stuff, because he's just not going to have guys on the ground to target. So it's a lot of nothing, and sometimes it kills itself, so we got to be smart and take that out. But there's a strong matchup I'm noticing now with this. I mean, I got some duress and stuff in there that will help, but I don't have to get too worried about it. It's like we're in a really decent position where we can really set up something to crush them. More importantly, he's got a Sundering Titan. I got plenty of ways to kill it. I got Vandal and other stuff, and I got a dragon that could just steal it. And that's a really good position to be in. And then on top of that, even if he just gets it off, all my guys are pretty much at or bigger than his, so I can just block it forever till I set up a better advantageous circumstance. And it took him so long to get that Storm combo off. I can put him in a spot where I can just keep attacking him and he can be out. Because the nice thing about reanimating these huge guys is it's only 1 or 2 turns they got to really do something. Because if they don't kill it right away, they're not going to be in the best circumstance. Now I'm really liking this hand. 1 black mana, and we're kind of cooking for gas. We have a Vandal to slow him down. We have Liliana to get stuff in her graveyard, and we have a spell to get it back. More importantly, it's a good synergy spell where it's a reanimate one that I can both flashback to block if magically he had something that he attacks with. But more importantly, it is turn before he's prepared, and it keeps it from being targeted because it's got Shroud. So we're in a pretty decent spot right here. I could even have the time to wait because Liliana is really great here because the more cards he gets out of his hand, the worse off he is. In fact, I was perfectly fine with the air getting force spiked there. I'm not pleased with that, especially because he's got 3 cards coming down the pipe. But it's not the end of the world because that thing was only going to beat him a little bit to the face. I can slow roll until I get to the spot where I want to be. I mean, this is not a great circumstance, but now I'm destroying his thing for searching for lands. It's going to cost him a mana when he eventually plays that land later. And in fact, if you can keep him off artifacts altogether on the play, the land that taps for blue can actually tap for nothing, and so that can make him even harder position. I mean, that's a pretty eye-in-the-sky kind of idea that will completely keep him off artifacts. Keeping it to 1 or 2 just makes that card not so great. And then this Vandal can just hit at any point. And now if we draw any land, we'll either have our artifact search up a basic and get a swamp, and then we're setting that up for the next turn, or we'll just have Liliana straight out, and we can just get to business. He's got a full mitt. He's digging through for cards. The nice thing is this kind of Tinker Storm hybrid combo that you see. I kind of like playing against them because even when they got a full grip, it doesn't really do anything until the point when they go off. And they've kind of modified Tinker and Storm and stuff, so it's never quite too insane. It takes them a while to kind of fully get off. And you have to have a certain amount of mana, so I'm always kind of okay with it because it just takes them so long. That means that there's going to be tons of turns where they're just doing nothing. And then if you can do something like we're going to do now, where you can kind of interact with their hands and you can wear it down. If they have a Storm card and they had to discard 2 or 3 other cards to keep it in their hand, it's worthless because they got to have a high Storm count before it does anything significant. Even if they have a partial fire off and it drains us for 8 and they gain 8, that's a good swing, but that didn't kill us, and now they don't really have as much going on, and now they're dependent on their Tinker combo to even win. And if we can prevent that Tinker combo or kill their guy, now they don't have anything going on. It's just not a great position. Now they do have Yawgmoth Will, so we have to be prepared for that because that can let them completely rebuild what they lost. But even if they get Yawgmoth Will and they never cast their spells in the first hand, they're only getting them back from the graveyard. That actually helps because that still really limits what they can do. Yawgmoth is really about cast and recast. Now I'm liking this because we have an emergency stop against anything big like a Sundering Titan. We have some cards that are going to work to our advantageous situation. And we have a bunch of big guys that we can chuck to eventually reanimate so we have more options. That it's going to really put him in a tough spot. And we can just keep grinding him down bit by bit with Liliana. And frankly, sometimes it's just stronger. Like a well-placed Thoughtseize can completely disrupt a Storm or Tinker deck and put them in a really tough spot, but sometimes the continual or more than one discard can grind them out more. I mean, obviously, anybody that hits with any of the X discard kind of spells that they have in this format is going to get really hurt either way. But particularly against this type of deck, it can really kind of like take away their ability to really do anything. Because if you're left with a bunch of not mana accelerating cards, like if we got rid of their Dark Ritual by random, and they don't get the Yawgmoth, then they have to cast a bunch of drawn discard cards to get anything at all, and then they're only firing off for a couple of Storm counts, and it's just not good. It needs to be overwhelming for them to win. They can get that a little more easily with the sheer number of cards they have to search through their deck, but it does have to be overwhelming. His Storm has to be at 8 plus the original card to kill us right now. And that's a lot. Doesn't seem like a lot, but it is a lot. Like his land can tap for a ton of mana, but right now it's only tapping for 1, and that's not great. No, we're going to do a response, and I end up picking this particular guy because he's going to put him in a really tough spot because he doesn't really have any way to remove him. I think if we'd seen a Damnation or anything like that, we would have seen it already, and for all I know, I might have seen it in a previous game. Now I love this. Extra land, Soul Ring, another reanimate effect. We can discard our dragon, to get it for that, or we can just, sneak attack with it. It's just really great right now. We also have an Eldrazi if we just want to hit him for 12, which we might do. Sneak attack, hit him for 12, then our other guys get in there, we win. Heck, if we only did that, and for some reason we had to leave our guys back, then we only have to get the Lethal Leviathan in there once to win. I think and that's the other thing. It's like, some of the cards need to really be good, like Time Spiral. That reloads our hand too, and that's not a great position. There's very few circumstances where you want your opponent to have a fresh 7 cards, even if it screwed them out of having their combo piece in hand. Because they can just have enough in hand to get you back. because you gotta burn your mana right away to get advantageous. Well, they have the reactive position, they have a fresh 7 plus the card they draw. It's gonna really help them out more because they didn't spend any mana on this. I'm a little concerned here. You could have the Storm Count, but nope, just Sundering Titan because that's what it is. He only has maybe 1 or 2 Storm cards in his whole deck. He has to actually hit them, and now he has a giant spend guy. That's it's really solid against some decks, but at the end of the day, it's kind of not what he wanted to spend all those cards to get to. I got plenty of options here. I can steal it. I can make him sacrifice it with Liliana. I can sneak attack out my guys and kind of get him to the face. There's just so many things we can do here. It's just a really satisfying spot to be in. Now I'm going to make him discard because that means next turn he's not going to be able to do anything about my Inkwell. If he blocks it, then it's dead, and I'm in a great spot. And then next turn, if I want to, I can not only get an extra guy out, but I get to steal his guy, and he's nowhere near where he's going to kill me. And if he just, best case scenario, attacks in and kills my Liliana, I've kind of done what I wanted to do. And I have sneak attack as a backup to hit him for 12, so, there's not really any scenario here where it's not going to be just great for me. This is also why I I feel that Sundering Titan's not the best as your only target for a Tinker deck or a ramp up kind of guy in this format, because there are guys that you can get a great advantage against. It can be really good against maybe an aggro one that has multiple colors, but there's just so many spells in this format that are signets, they're soul rings, they're whatever, that he dies, he could take out 2 more of our lands, and we still have a red and 2 colorless. That's a pretty solid position. And then if I hang onto my land, even better. And he could hypothetically fall behind in this circumstance. There's just too many artifact manas for it to be completely overwhelming. Now, he's kind of aware of his circumstance here. I got my Leviathan, I'm going to get him. He's trying to be sneaky, wear down my lands, and get me, but, that's my point. I think he lost as soon as he cast the Sundering Titan in the first place because he screwed over so much of his Storm Count. And now he's trying to dig for something to try and storm us out. And he thinks it's kind of clever. I mean, I get it. You got a bunch of our lands in the first go, and I get 2 more of our lands in the second go. I can see where the value in that is. But we have an artifact producer in play. And unless he's going to follow it up immediately with the Planeswalker that steals it, which would still not be a great position, because then I could just hit him to the face and win. It's just not a good position to be in. It's just not really any scenario where that's going to work out for him. And then when he tinkers for it to just try and get something to search for more lands to try and combo us out, it's just not where you want to be. And even if he gets it off, it's just only going to do so much. I can spend a bunch more turns to hit him with Inkwell Leviathan and get there. I got all the time in the world. On top of that, because I made the smart decision, I recognized that even if he had killed, or if I had to kill the Sundering Titan, I'd still have 1 red left. At any point, I can just send this Eldrazi to his face and kill him with it alone, much less my guys, which currently are lethal on board. Now, this is something that really buys him time, but that was my kind of point. He spent so much cards to get that Sundering Titan out, and then afterwards to kind of ramp to it. He's only getting 6 tokens. That's not going to do it. I mean, an Inkwell Leviathan alone could attack a million times and just crush him, but it's just not going to get him in the position he wants to be in. So that's why I don't really think it's a great hybrid. I mean, I understand because having Tinker can alone against certain decks win the game, and having Storm alone against certain decks can win the game, but it's just not going to help you. It's just not going to gel enough times to not make it inherently weak on the internals. In fact, that's kind of why I like this kind of more consistent sneak attack, reanimate hybrid kind of deck. You're going to more consistently do your windmill slams than they are. And if you have the card to eliminate the one thing they did or prevent the one thing they did, they're just not going anywhere. They're just not going to have the situation that they want. Heck, if I had had some, let's say, mana leak against when he tried to storm me last time, he had to spend too much, like I'd say I did against Yawgmoth's Will. He loses enough mana sometimes, not in that particular case, but in some cases where it just puts them far enough behind that they don't get a high enough storm con off to really kill you. I mean, that's even with you contributing to the storm count by putting a counter. They can have to waste too much mana. Now, the particular last case he had, there was an ideal circumstance, and there wasn't much I could do. In this one, I'm fine with it because, I was even fine with, intentionally sneaking my attack out my Eldrazi, which is part of why I said I don't always like that card. It's got Menace, so 2 tokens alone can block it, and it does nothing. It's got no trample. But I'm okay with that because now I have tons of options. Either he's going to kill my Equal Leviathan, unlikely, and I'm going to be able to reanimate it back, or he's not, and then I can get my Eldrazi back, in addition to having him so few tokens and not going to do anything, that I can now have 2 fatties on play, and it's going to be a lot harder for him to keep us from killing him. I mean, he's doing all these shenanigans. He's trying to get back his Sundering Titan, and I still have 2 mana, and it's just not really where it needs to be. I mean, at any point, I just need to draw 1 black, and I can reanimate again. I could draw any other land, and I could have a Swords in play. Not that that's the most ideal circumstance right here. And all of it's irrelevant, too, because he has, he tried to be smart and kind of blow up his own island there, but at the end of the day, I still have the Leviathan, and I can just wait. Because he has to never play blue again, and have a card that's really good, so his blues are either blank or they're a liability to kill him. And I just draw 1 black, and I'm just back in the game, and I got a 12/12, and now he's just done, because neither of them can really kill my guys, and it's just going to be enough to get him. In this particular case, I'm just going to steal his guy, because not only do I get the same difference, but I have so many guys that got him, and then more importantly, the guy's a flyer, so he can do 50. He can drop 50 more giant guys, and it won't really affect me because I can just fly over because he's just at 2 life. He's digging for more answers, but he just doesn't got anything. More importantly, I can just attack with my Leviathan just as normal, and now we're there. And we get the win. So now we're going to sideboard, and I don't know if there's much to do, because I got a spell that steals the 1 big thing he has. And that's really powerful, because that also means that instead of killing it, he can't get it back with the Planeswalker or anything. Toxic Deluge is nice, but I've just had the recognition that there's just not anything else he's tinkering for in his deck, because he would have at this point, and he searched through enough cards he would have cast something. So I might as well just straight up kill the Sundering Titan, because that's really all that Toxic Deluge does, and it's got a liability maybe costing you enough life to be kind of a pain in the butt. I also go Tamiyo here because it's not only the last game, so why not mess around, but it has an advantageous abilities against this deck, even though I don't have as much blue, and he obviously has a Titan that can limit the amount of blue I have if it's islands and he blows them up. But I'm like, you know what? That has a really strong thing against him. He can lock down his Sundering Titan, so he can't do anything with it. Like, when I kill it, he has more of an option to get it back than anything else. And by the way, this is a good opening hand, because Duress can really mess him over. If he's got a Tinker, take his Tinker. If he's got a Storm card, take a Storm card. This particular case, he's got a lot of nothing and a Time Spiral. I take the Time Spiral. There's not much he can do. I mean, even when he anticipates, he has to be luck into getting it, and it has to only be 1 card. So I'm really liking what we got going on right now. We have Liliana to wear him down. We got guys to chuck to hypothetically reanimate. The Dragon, the nice thing is at some point we could just cast it straight up and just steal or anything with his Sundering Titan if he magically drew Tinker right away and had the artifact to kill it, which is, now he has multiple cards he needs to set up. And I think that's part of the problem with the Storm Tinker Hybrid combo. There's all these inherent weaknesses I point out, but both parts require a lot of setup cost. And it's just kind of hard to get an advantageous situation with that. I mean, look here. He's got this really powerful Planeswalker. And I'm smart enough to take a land based hand that doesn't really have any artifacts. Now all it's doing is just kind of looting for him, and that's just going to do nothing. And it's going to take him a while to ultimate if that's really what he does, so it's kind of great for us. Now, unfortunately, we have a coming to play tap land, so we'll have to play Liliana next turn, but that's fine because then we can both chuck and reanimate at the same time. In the meantime, he's just digging through his deck trying to find anything to do, much less that he has to have lands to play that. Well, we're sitting just pretty. If he Sundering Titans out real quick, we got him. And, this is also why I like Demio. We can lock down his Sundering Titan if he ever gets it. We can lock down his land that taps for mana, and now he's really in a tough spot for either one. And all he's got is a bunch of lands, something in his hand that will accelerate him mana. I mean, he's even digs enough to get the Tinker combo, and he's not in the best circumstance. Now, it is a little annoying for us because now we don't have the Liliana mana, but we still got one black, and he can't blow up any of our non-basics, so we're fine. Now I'm going with blue here because at the end of the day, except for Tamiyo, there's only a handful of blue cards that we really need in our deck, and he can't blow up our second blue. So that way, if he gets killed, say we get a Vandal next turn or something, I'm not really going to cry over it, and that leaves him with the ability to blow up his own land. Because he currently has a land that taps for only one blue, a land that taps for black and nothing else, and if we can blow up his Sundering Titan, he's down to a land that taps for nothing and no lands. I mean, he does have this guy to keep digging for him, which will help. In fact, I really wish we got Vandal here real quick, because he'd have to blow up 2 of his own lands. That'd really mess him over. Or even if we drew another black and got a removal spell, or if we make him sacrifice with Liliana, and we get the land. Now we can make him sacrifice with Liliana. Now, this is kind of tricky, though, because we'll lose the 3 lands. It's not the end of the world for us. We won't make him lose anything, but it does put him off 1 land. It puts him off his big guy. It's not that bad. And even if he goes off with his Planeswalker or something, we can, if he doesn't get the pressure on, we can build up our Liliana so he has to sacrifice more than half of his permanents, and after stripping out his lands in his hand. So it's not too bad. I mean, we had the opportunity for something really great to happen here. In addition to that, we can just reanimate at some point. Because all we need to do is draw an additional land, and then in 2 turns, we're reanimating our guy right into play. I mean, that's why I like this. We're in a really tough spot. He's casting these huge guys early, so he's racing us with speed. He's blown up just countless numbers of our lands by consistently getting Sundering Titan Tinker combo. And we're still fine. We're still resilient. We still can cast the majority of our stuff. And we're still ahead of him with him going off with all of his stuff. I mean, how many lands has he blown up that in another deck you could survive this sort of stuff? So this is just great for us. That's why I like this deck. He's just wrecking us, and we're just like, okay, whatever. I got the time to set this up, and when I go off, you have a lot harder time dealing with it than I do with you. Until you get to your perfect storm situation, and with 2 cards in hand, you're not really going to get there. We're doing great. In addition, I'm going to keep stripping cards out of your hand. So since I'm kind of target rich here, I end up picking Griselbrand because he can gain us life, which means we can put further and further out of reach of the Storm ability. And we've kind of dealt with his Tinker thing, so it's going to take him a lot of work, basically, to extinguish the ability to Storm. If we wanted to, Yawgmoth's Will, ramp a bunch of, kind of Dark Ritual, Desperate Ritual kind of things to get his Sundering Titan back out. And we can deal with that too. So I'd rather have this, and then additionally, if he kills it, I could hypothetically draw 7 cards to get another reanimate spell in hand to get my other guy into play, and we could be sitting pretty great with that circumstance. So I kind of like that with the Griselbrand. Some people wouldn't chuck the Griselbrand. He's nice, but he's got some inherent weaknesses, and he can die to a lot of stuff, and he has to hit to gain the life, but I just kind of like where it's going with that. And here's another great thing, I'm going to chuck another big guy. Checking him because if something weird happens, we can get the Eldrazi into play, and that would be better because the Atarka is just kind of like a secondary. You just care about him because he's 8, and he'll target the Planeswalker with his 5 damage. And now I have, not only do if it takes me forever to reanimate this guy, I'm fine, but I'm chucking my extra big guy with this, and I'm hitting him for 3. That can both take care of the Planeswalker or just wear him down for life. And he keeps digging, but he's just not finding what he needs to find because he doesn't have a critical mass of a number of cards in his hand. And he's dug so many cards out of his deck. But it's so inherently weak, you have to have such high setup circumstances to go off. You need to cast multiple spells in one turn, probably Yawgmoth's Will to recast them, and then he has to get really high. I mean, it takes him 5 spells plus his original spell to kill us right now. And I'm wearing him down a little bit because at the end of the day, I'm not really going to kill him solely with the vampire, and if I do, I'll have to take so many turns anyways, it won't really matter. I'd rather wear down his Planeswalker because if I take it out, he's got 1 card left in hand and not much else of anything else, so I might as well wear him down just in case he tries to do anything funny with it. And he's almost out of cards in his deck, period. And he's like, going desperation moves just to try and get ahead. Now I'm getting my Griselbrand, which is going to put me life so far ahead he can't storm me out, and even if he gets a Centering Titan, I'll be able to outrace it. Much less that I could then eventually draw 7 cards. It's just game over. And there we go, we got the win. And that's kind of why I like this build. I've kind of shown up, like, some of it's really good. Some of it's going to be weak, like we got killed by a Dirtly deck in the second match, so there is some inherent weaknesses, but I think there's something really strong here. I think it's worth trying out, so that way if you're going for the animation thing, you could maybe pick up a sneak attack or through the breach and stuff like that later, and you can see that there's kind of an inherent advantage to that, in addition to the fact that a lot of the cards that you want for both have a little bit of synergy together. And this is this is the kind of the point of the series I'll be doing with these, is I want you guys to kind of think about what are these kind of weirder builds we could do that a lot of times you'll still draft the traditional stuff, but sometimes you can get these corner shots that are really good. I remember back in Magic Origins, I developed a really good strategy where I took these terrible elf that was 1 black for a 1/2, and then when it attacked, it made the opponent lose 1 life unless they had elves. And because I was inherently kind of stealing the elves and some other stuff, other quirks about the set, that was really a problem. So it was a terrible card, but because you could get a certain critical mass because nobody wanted it, and you could build anticipating having a bunch of those guys, I could kill a lot of decks. Because there was not the slowest decks in that format, but it was kind of so goofy enough that you could get like a ton of those guys. Well, now they're attacking like the equivalents of 2/2s, even if they're not that good. And also, once they finally have something to block them, you can still attack, and they can all make them lose 1 life when they attack before they get blocked. And all of a sudden, they're in a really tight spot, and you can easily burn them out or fly over them with 1 or 2 flyers or something. And that was a really strong way to draft, because every normal deck did not want that card. And it's still garbage to a certain degree, but if you can find a really good circumstance, you can use that against people and you can really crush them. And that's just kind of something I want to make people more aware of when it comes to drafting, because you can get used to a format and build it really well. Well, then start working on drafting weird cards, because then you can have a circumstance where maybe deck didn't totally come together. You can take those weird late pick cards that aren't normally good, and you can find a way to make them great.